What about staffing? Do you have a team?
Yeah. So right now, I have a little team that I work with for my online courses and that whole business. And it's very lean. It's a very skeletal team. And for my comedy podcast, I have a little team of writers, like 4 people, and that's incredibly helpful. They basically send me prompts every week, and then I sort of riff on those, and I try to come up with a comedy routine that suits my voice, because nobody can write for you, but they can get close and they can write prompts and they can have subtext that you can work with. So that's been really fun. That's like having a little mini writer's room, you know. But the one thing I learned about staffing at the Onion was how to get top people, like how to get the A players. And the simple way that I've used to do that is I have to be playing my A game and I have to be doing my absolute best because that attracts people who like to do the same thing. So if you're a leader in your field, people from all over the world will see that and they will come to you. And that's basically what happened at the Onion. The top people were approaching us trying to get jobs. Now, the ironic thing there is that I didn't hire those people. What I wanted to hire were people who were a blank slate, who had zero comedy experience. So the trick then was how to weed those people out of we must have gotten hundreds of submissions every day once the Onion became well known. And it was pretty easy to sift through to find the gems in all those submissions. There were the really super experienced people who'd worked on TV shows and so on. They were just rejected out of hand. Then there were the sort of competent submitters who knew how to write a cover letter, had a nice resume, et cetera, et cetera. I would occasionally read their material and it was just never any good. People were trying to ape the Onion's voice and they couldn't really get it. It's harder to do than it looks. Then there were the people who were just young, eager, didn't know how to send a submission in, but their jokes were funny. They had like 10 headline submissions that were funny. I would always call those people. And it would be a very similar story. It would be like, oh, I'm depressed, so I haven't had a job in a while. I live in my mother's basement, stuff like that. And those were the people I wanted. Those were the people I hired. And, the Onion has produced so many Emmy-winning, Oscar-winning, best-selling authors, writers. They're like the best writers of satire in the world. So I definitely learned to think outside the box when it comes to how to find the best people, because depending on the industry, you might need a different strategy for how you find the best people.
So when you were finding these people, was it, hey, how were you able to identify those? Is it just going, hey, these are the traits we want? Like, because one thing I struggle with, I have a small media company now, and I always tell the team the hardest part about having this business is the people, it's the staffing, and it's just like the people element is the hardest part, because if I have a camera, if I turn it on, it turns on. If I turn it off, it turns off. If it breaks, you buy a new one or you upgrade or whatever. But with people, it's never so black and white. There's always this huge landscape of gray. And like, you hire somebody because you think they have these traits, and then they don't have those traits. And then you're just like, but I've already invested time. And I know I'm too nice as a business owner, as a boss, whatever, because I see the good in everybody, and I get taken advantage of for that, because of that. Like, how are you identifying top level talent? Because when I hear you have, hey, these are the people we want, but they have no experience, I also hear, maybe I can get them at a discount, because the guy that has all these writing credits and all these shows, you're probably going to have to pay that person 5x than the entry level person.
Yeah, it was never a question of money, because the Onion had its rate that it paid people. It paid.
Oh, it's a standard.
Yeah, standard rate. And anyone who was submitting just wanted the prestige of working at the Onion. They would take a pay cut to work at the Onion. And I wasn't the money guy, so I didn't even decide what that amount was. It was decided by the business guys, the bean counters. And no, I wanted those newbies because they were moldable and but the way I found them was that they were funny. So you and I are very similar in that way. Like I see the potential. I always see the best in people. And from just a submission, I can see in a joke that somebody has something to say. Like there are, professional $1 million comedy writers who write for Hollywood who don't have anything to say. They can write a great joke, but what's the subtext? Like, what's the interesting idea they're communicating through that joke? Is there any pain there? Is there any awareness of like what's wrong with society, et cetera, et cetera? When I would find these people who were just like lonely or depressed or unfulfilled people who would write in with these great jokes, I knew that if you give those people a soapbox, they're going to write great satire. So again, it was all like job specific. If you're talking about, what are some jobs that maybe aren't creative? Like, I had just hired a new assistant. My old assistant got married and moved on to have kids, so didn't want to work anymore. And so the way I find that person is, an assistant, like a personal assistant, is somebody who's going to be all up in your business. They're going to know your life. They're going to know everything about you. And you just need them to be your mom. You just need them to take care of every last little detail. So I need a service-oriented person. And I was reminded of that story. I think Tony Robbins told this story of how, now I'm going to forget the name of the airline, but it was an airline that was hiring new flight attendants. And they put on this like seminar to invite all the people who wanted to work as flight attendants. And they would have them get up on stage and give a talk. And the flight attendant applicants all thought that they were being judged on the talk, but the people hiring were looking at the audience and they were looking at who's the most engaged, who's an active listener, who's like going like this and like that. That's who we want as a flight attendant. So looking at, who's service oriented, who's eager to please, who will go to the ends of the earth to help someone. Like that's what I want as an assistant. So that's working out great. And again, it's all job specific. I just want to find someone who just to their core almost has an identity of being that job,
And have you always been able to do that? Because for me, one thing I've identified in the last 2 years of hiring, firing, and turnover is I am no longer the first point of contact. I need everybody else in the team to interview this person first, because again, I'm like, oh, I see. Yeah, you're great. You're hired. Like I don't think I've ever been able to get through like 15 interviews. It's like, so you have a pool of people. It's like the first one you meet, like, oh, they're great, hired. And then the team is like, no, let us. And even if we do identify somebody we like, we need to spend a week's worth of like a working interview. Like maybe we just hire them from our contract to work with. But again, it's just because I'm like, you're hired.
Yeah, well, I have that instinct as well. And oftentimes I just act on it. And if the person is not a good fit, you learn right away, because I basically throw them in, sink or swim. And it's like a trial period. I give everybody a trial period because I want to make sure it works. So it's a great system, because if in the trial period they take the ball and run with it, you got a winner and it's going to work out. And if they don't, like you've really lost nothing. You haven't invested a lot in training. I don't really do a lot of investment in like somebody's education or training until they're through that probationary period.
How long is that for you?
For me, it's 3 months. I do 3 months.
And
you often know earlier, but that's like, you're going to know everything you need to know in 3 months.
Well, I've heard for years, you hire slow, fire fast. The minute you identify, you fire. But what I have is that, but hey, but I've invested time. I really like this person. I want to give him a chance. Let's see if things turn around. And what I've learned is it just bites in the ass. Like I just recently just had to let somebody go, and we knew 2-3 months ago that this person wasn't a good culture fit, work ethic, all that. But attitude, he had a great attitude 80% of the time. Like he was like an 80%er, where it's like he worked on it until he was bored with it and moved on to something else. But the problem is, in a production situation where we're producing videos, we're producing content, and you produce 80% of video that never gets released, then that means 100% of your time was worthless. You know? So anyway, not to harp on that, but it's just, it's funny because like now it's like, maybe now I've learned my lesson, where when I know, you know, hey, it's not working out, move on, you know?
Yeah, I basically hire fast and fire fast. So I want to get somebody in there right away to find out if they're a good fit. And if they're not, I know really fast. And they know too. It's usually not a painful firing. It's like, you know, this obviously is not working out.
See, I knew I liked you because that's how I'm a hire fast, fire slow, but I know I should be a fire fast. So,
Yeah.
but you know, maybe it's the echo chamber thing, you know, hey, he's saying something I agree with, so he's right.
Maybe.